anyone wants to know is, when do we get a vaccine? When do we get a treatment? Can you talk me through when you anticipate and a timeline for being able to deliver a therapeutic for COVID?
Sure. No, thanks for the opportunity. We're focused on antibody treatments for COVID. We've got two antibodies in clinical development. The one that's farthest ahead is getting ready to start registrational trials across a continuum of care, including patients who are already sick with COVID-19, patients who have just been diagnosed, and even in a prophylactic setting for patients at high risk, like residents of nursing homes and frontline healthcare workers. We'd expect to start registration trials within the next few weeks, and then depending on how fast we can enroll, would expect to see data this fall and certainly by the end of the year.
Where does the biggest challenge lie with these products, Josh? Is it in figuring out the chemistry, the biochemistry, or is it figuring out the manufacturing?
Manufacturing is certainly going to be a challenge. I think first we have to ensure that the antibodies can have an effect on the virus. Based on preclinical work and early work to date, we have a lot of hope there. But to the extent that a drug like an antibody, like Lilly's antibody, works, scaling up manufacturing capacity is going to be a challenge. Our goal is to have, and we don't even know the appropriate dose yet, but our goal by the end of this year is to have 100,000 doses available, scaling up then more into 2021. That certainly will be a challenge for the antibodies.
Does that mean that you need some government support?
We are working across the industry to collaborate on manufacturing, not on our products. Every company is developing their own potential product, but really to look at capacity around the world, and we need to work together. The government isn't really going to be able to help in terms of building capacity. We have to leverage the existing monoclonal antibody capacity that exists around the world, and what we're doing in our plants is reconfiguring so that we can free up as much capacity as quickly as possible.
Just in terms of the way that it's going to work, everybody's getting very excited, Josh, about a vaccine, and some people see it as a silver bullet. Increasingly, though, it looks like that is unlikely. Are we going to live in a world where we have some degree of immunity from vaccines, but are going to need therapeutics in a big way to back that up?
Yeah, of course, just like everyone else, we're anxious to see the data on vaccines and are hopeful there. I think even in a best case scenario, there are going to be populations that will benefit from an antibody if it works. There'll be people who don't get vaccinated. There are people whose immune systems may not tolerate a vaccine or may not respond to it as well. So we certainly see the monoclonal antibody approach as coexisting with vaccines, and we're hopeful that multiple antibodies work from multiple companies, multiple vaccines work from multiple companies, and as we get into 2021, we've got a much better therapeutic approach to the disease.
Something that we've also been trying to work out is the cost of vaccines. Some say Moderna is like 50 to 60 for 2 doses. Then you have 1950. It looks like that's what's going to be for Pfizer's vaccine. Do you have a read yet on what an antibody a therapeutic would cost, or do you need to be profitable if you can't answer the former question yet?
Well, our first obviously goal is to get trials up and running so that we can see whether or not these antibodies work. As I mentioned, that we're moving as fast as we can there. You know, we anticipate that by the end of the year, we'll spend upward of $300 million on investments in R&D and manufacturing capacity, with, of course, much more to come if we have products that work. We're really focused on that. You know, we got into this because we've got scientific capabilities. This isn't our business. We'll price the product responsibly. But I think the biggest thing is going to be if we have data that indicates a possible treatment. The biggest piece, as we talked about earlier, is going to be manufacturing capacity. So that's what we're really focused on right now.
Josh, I want to take it a bit further towards your wheelhouse, which is the financials surrounding this company. You're expecting EPS to rise. You're expecting top-line revenue to be fairly flat. I'm curious as to what is happening with drug pricing in the United States at the moment. We saw the claims data a little bit earlier on. Many millions of Americans are currently out of work, sadly. How does that impact, given the way that America deals with drug pricing and healthcare? How does the large number of people that are currently on the unemployment list affect the way that drugs are priced and then feed through into your business?
Sure. I mean, first, I would say just as our sales outlook for the year is to grow our top line in the high single digits. We saw a slight decline in Q2, but that was really a pronounced effect in terms of inventory patterns and some lack of new prescriptions. We're seeing that recover. So our outlook for the year is I say, a robust growth, and we see that headed into 2021. As you mentioned, I think that the challenge from a drug pricing perspective for our business will be in the U.S., patients or consumers who currently have commercial insurance or had commercial insurance, as they move into an unemployment status, what happens there? And if these patients are moving into Medicaid, Medicaid is a lower price segment than commercial insurance. We quantified today in our earnings release that our estimates are next year, that would be a modest pricing headwind of something like $200 million, which is pretty minor for us. And that assumes that unemployment at the end of next year in the U.S. is in the high single digits. Of course, who knows what that'll be, but our estimates are there will be some move there. More importantly, I think, is the emphasis on trying to ensure that anybody who's showing up at the pharmacy counter has a better opportunity to access the kind of rebates, discount, and pricing we offer to customers across the continuum. And we're very focused on ensuring that even as patients lose insurance, they don't have to make a trade-off decision related to their prescription medications.
But on the flip side, as you're dealing with maybe more people moving to Medicaid and Medicare, and then also you wind up having put a lot of money into developing this antibody manufacturing, then you also have President Trump signing 4 executive orders to bring U.S. drug prices down to at least their cost overseas. That came out on Friday. What does that mean to you guys?
Well, I think the executive orders that came out last week, they're of the 4, 2 of them do focus on trying to reduce patient out-of-pocket costs, which we have been for, and these are ideas that we've advocated for a long time. I think the pieces, though, around price indexing to countries outside the U.S. are just really bad ideas. As we've talked about here, we've got an industry now that's putting significant resources and investment against cures for COVID. In the base part of our business, we invest in areas like oncology, and if there's not an opportunity for good pricing at the end of what are very, very risky and very big investments, we're going to see that investment base dry up. I, as a CFO, couldn't justify to shareholders to continue to invest in early-stage oncology breakthrough medications if there's not an opportunity for reasonable pricing on the back end. So we think these are really bad ideas.